In a village nestled deep within a valley, where the mist often lingered like a soft, gray blanket, stood an old, weathered lantern. It wasn't grand or ornate, just a simple thing of iron and glass, hanging by the main road. But this lantern was special. It never went out. Storms would rage, winds would howl, and rain would lash down, yet its flame would just dance and flicker, a tiny, defiant star against the darkest nights. In that same village lived a young girl named Alara. Her heart felt as heavy and gray as the valley mist. Her dreams, once bright and colorful, had faded one by one. She had tried to be a painter, but her colors always seemed muddy. She had tried to be a singer, but her voice felt small and lost. Now, she just felt lost. Her own inner light had dwindled to a barely there ember, and she feared even the slightest breeze would extinguish it completely. One particularly stormy evening, Alara found herself drawn to the unyielding lantern. The wind tore at her cloak and the rain stung her face, but she just stood there, watching the flame. How could it survive this? How could something so small be so strong when she felt so weak? As she watched, the village elder, a kind old woman with eyes that held the wisdom of 1,000 stories, came and stood beside her, sheltered under a large oil paper umbrella. "It's a wonder, isn't it?" the elder said, her voice a gentle hum against the storm's roar. Alara just nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. The elder smiled softly. "It's not just oil that keeps this flame alive. You know, there's a secret to its strength." She beckoned Alara closer, lowering her voice. Long ago, the first villagers faced a terrible, long winter. Their spirits were low, and hope was nearly gone. So, the first elder asked everyone, no matter how small or fragile, to write down a single hope on a tiny slip of paper. A hope for a good harvest, a hope for a child's laughter, a hope to see the sun again. They collected these slips and placed them inside the lantern. The old woman tapped the lantern's base. Those weren't just pieces of paper, they were fragments of hope. Each one added its own tiny spark to the flame. Ever since, villagers have been adding their hopes. A new hope when a baby is born, a hope for a safe journey, a hope for a loved one to heal. This lantern doesn't burn on oil, my dear. It burns on the collective hopes of our entire village. That's why no storm can put it out. It holds too much light. Alara stared at the lantern, truly seeing it for the first time. It wasn't just a light. It was a beacon, a living, breathing testament to resilience. She thought about her own faded dreams, the ones she had given up on. Maybe she had been trying to light a huge bonfire all at once, instead of cherishing the small sparks. The elder seemed to read her mind. "Your own light hasn't gone out, Alara. It's just waiting for fuel." She handed Alara a small empty glass jar. "Why don't you start collecting your own hope flames? They don't have to be big. A hope to see a beautiful sunrise, a hope to bake a perfect loaf of bread, a hope to make a stranger smile. Each one is a spark." That night, for the first time in a long time, Alara felt a flicker of warmth inside her. She went home and found a tiny slip of paper. On it she wrote, "I hope to finish the sketch I started." It was a small hope, almost laughably simple. But as she folded it and dropped it into her jar, she imagined a tiny, warm spark appearing in the glass. The next day, she sat down and finished the sketch. It wasn't a masterpiece, but it was hers. She smiled, a real, genuine smile, and wrote another note. "I hope to feel this proud again tomorrow." Another spark in the jar. Days turned into weeks. Alira's jar began to fill. "I hope to learn the elder's recipe for stew. I hope to help Mrs. Gable mend her fence. I hope to sing a song, just for myself, without worrying if it's good enough." Each hope she collected, each small action she took, felt like adding another tiny, glowing ember to her jar. She noticed the world around her more. She saw the intricate patterns of frost on a window pane, heard the melody in a bird's morning call, and felt the genuine warmth in a neighbor's greeting. Her art began to change. Instead of trying to paint grand sweeping landscapes, she started sketching the small wonders she was collecting. The way the light hit a dewdrop on a leaf, the wrinkled kind face of the elder, the steam rising from a cup of hot tea. Her paintings weren't just colors on canvas anymore. They were filled with the light she was gathering. One day a traveling merchant got caught in a sudden blizzard just outside the village. He was cold, lost, and his own lantern had been blown out by the fierce wind. He stumbled towards the village, his hope fading, until he saw it, the single unwavering light of the village lantern, cutting through the swirling snow. It guided him to safety. When Alara and the other villagers brought him warm blankets and hot stew, he looked at Alara, who was holding her own small jar, now glowing with an imagined light. "Your village. It has a special kind of warmth," the merchant said, his voice thick with emotion. Alara looked from the village lantern to her own jar. She understood now. The secret wasn't just about collecting hope. It was about letting that hope light the way, not just for yourself, but for others too. Her jar was never as big or as bright as the village lantern, but it didn't need to be. It was her own personal beacon. It reminded her that even when the world feels dark and stormy, and even when you feel small and lost, a single, tiny hope is enough. Because one small hope can light the next, and soon, you have enough light to illuminate your entire life. Your light might even be the one that helps guide someone else home. The story of Alara and the lantern reminds us that we don't need a grand, roaring fire of ambition to feel alive. Sometimes, all we need is to collect the small, everyday sparks of hope. The hope for a good conversation, the hope for a quiet moment of peace, the hope to create something beautiful, just for you. Each one is a flame. So, what's the first hope flame you'll put in your jar today? Thank you so much for watching. If this story resonated with you, consider subscribing for more tales that warm the heart. Stay hopeful, and we'll see you in the next video.